Here's one of my own little ditties, I guess you could say. Peter, maybe this is the one we do. Check this one out.
What's going on, guys? Peter J. Cruz here. Welcome back. Today we're going to kick off the collaboration project that the Tone King and I are going to be doing called TTK Making Music with Peter J. Cruz. So rock on. Just kind of orient you guys real quick on how we're going to set this up. Basically, you guys are going to be in the driver's seat, the producer's chair, engineer's chair, or whatever you want to call it. Essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to roll camera. We're going to work on this project together, and you guys are going to be there sort of like eavesdropping the whole time. Basically, I'm going to go ahead and set up the track here, and I'm going to be barking instructions over to the Tone King on stuff for the project, and he's going to be recording and doing all this other stuff on his end and talking to me through the camera, and we're going to go do this kind of back and forth. It's going to be like really, you guys are literally going to be like a fly on the wall for this whole series, this whole collaboration project. So we have a lot of fun with it. TTK has got some really cool riffs. He brought out a really good one. And during 30 Pedals in 30 Days, one of his little ditties, as he called it. And so I think it was day 17 on the AMT. There were two pedals, the Bulava and something else. I forget the two pedals. They both were just screaming high gain pedals. But anyway, so he had a really cool riff in that one. He's like, I think this is one we're going to do for the song. So I went ahead and ripped the audio out from that video, just to kind of listen to the tone, to the riff and kind of the song that he was like throwing out there, just so I can kind of get an idea for the tempo and so forth, so I can start mapping out stuff in Sonar. And by the way, we're going to be working through Sonar X3, and we're going to be exchanging project files and so forth with Gobbler. Gobbler is like an online, almost like Dropbox or that type of thing, but it's designed specifically for media collaboration projects and sharing, and you can even use it to back up your projects if you want to. But in any case, so here, let's go into Sonar now, and I'm going to go ahead and get this project launched and kind of going so you guys can see what's going on and get the Tone King oriented on what I'm going to be doing. So here I am in Sonar, and excuse me. Let me pull up the track. Making Music TTK Style is what I'm calling the project here. Tone King, I'm just going to give you an orientation on, I've already set up some of the stuff because to do it on camera is really lengthy, and I don't want videos to run like 30 minutes. So I went ahead and just kind of set up some of the stuff ahead of time, just for brevity's sake. So first thing I've got here is I've got a reference folder, and this first one here, and by the way, it's archived, which means Sonar really doesn't see it. It's basically there in the project. It's saved with the files and everything, but when Sonar plays anything or records anything, it makes like the archived track is not even there. It doesn't even exist as far as Sonar is concerned, but it's there for our purposes. I'm going to unarchive it so I can listen to it, and let me go ahead and hit play. Sorry, hold on. Let me do this. All right. This is what I ripped from the YouTube video.
Here's one of my own little ditties, I guess you could say. Peter, maybe this is the one we do. Check this one out.
So I'm going to unsolo this and then archive it again so it doesn't get in the way of the project. And so listening to that sample, Tone King, I can kind of go two ways with this. We can kind of go that the tempo is actually pretty upbeat and the riff is kind of like a laid back, way back in the groove, kind of a halftime feel. Or the whole song could be like a halftime feel thing, like a much slower tempo. So I didn't know how you wanted to go about it exactly. So assuming you're going for that kind of prodding, kind of Black Sabbath type of style, real slow chugging and stuff, I I figured I'd go with a slower tempo overall. So I went ahead and set the project tempo to about 75, which seems to be pretty ballpark to what you've got going on with your riff there. If you need to tweak it, all you essentially got to do is go into Sonar up here and double click in here and just click, whatever number you want. I'm just gonna leave it at 75, and just leave it as such. So you can sit there. You can even play with the little plus and minus buttons here to tweak it, increments at a time. But we'll just leave it at 75 for now. And again, you can tweak as you need. So that's that. And again, it's archived. So whenever we play the project back, you won't even hear it. The next track I've created was an inspiration track, and this is also going to be archived as well. But if you want to go ahead and put in a track in here, and I do this when I work on my projects, something to kind of refocus your attention on the goal at hand, so to speak, when you're working on something. Let's say, your idea for this riff came from listening to some classic Sabbath or Metallica or whatever, and that's kind of the vibe you kind of want it to go with. Then I would probably find a song that typifies that feel, that what kind of gets that juice going on that riff. And I would put a clip of that song in this track right here. And again, just archive it. And when you start kind of losing focus and going, God, what the hell am I doing with the song? Listen back, unarchive the inspiration track, hit solo, and just listen to it. And just say, okay, yeah, that's where I was going with it. Okay, I get the feeling now. And it's just kind of like a FYI thing. And by the way, we won't actually do these in our videos, just for copyright purposes and all that stuff. So you can do it on your own, and I'll do it on my own here. We'll do that probably off camera, or we'll edit those parts out, just so there's no copyright infringement issues at all. With public performance of copyrighted material. So that's going to be the inspiration track there. And the mix reference is probably more for me on my end, and I could have added it later, but I like to just set everything up at the beginning. And basically, same idea, but it's more on the mixing side rather than on the the inspiration for the material side. So kind of if I'm trying to aim to get that real grungy kind of dirty garage type band sound or whatever, I'll find a really dirty sounding production or whatever, and I'll stick it in there just to kind of A/B it with what I'm working on versus my my comparison, or whichever what I'm using to compare it to. For my purpose, if we want to go for something highly polished, maybe like a really thick Dream Theater type sound, real proggy or something, then I'll put a track like that in there. To when I'm mixing, I say, okay, well, I probably need a little bit, less of the bass drum, a little bit more of this, or maybe more keyboards or whatever, and so I can kind of balance the mix based on what I'm hearing from my reference material, so to speak. So, and again, that's going to be archived, so Sonar won't even see it, hear it, taste it, feel it, touch it, whatever. So, so that's going to be everything on the reference folder for now. I might add some stuff later, but for the most part, that's pretty much the crux of what I'll use in the reference folder. If I've got like an old demo lying around for a project or whatever, I might stick that in there. But for our collaboration, I think I'll just leave it as such. For the drums, just to keep everything simple and easy, and since we both have Sonar X3, I thought I would use Session Drummer just for the tracking portions of it. It's included with Sonar X3 and all the versions across the board, so there's no issue with compatibility issues. And I just created just a simple, I think it's like one track output. It's not really, I'm not doing separate outputs for all the different drums and so forth. I'll do that later during mixdown, because what I'll do is I'll pick a different drum setup. I'll use like BFD2 or Steven Slate Drums 4 or something like that to get a really, really awesome kick butt drum sound that I can sit there and send all different outputs every which way for mixing. I'll put, I can treat the snare differently than the bass drum, and then the toms and the cymbals and the overheads and the whole thing. So, but for the tracking, because I mean, you don't want to sit there and, let me do this. You don't want to be tracking your rhythm tracks to this, do you? I mean, it's really boring. So what I thought I would do is, let's turn the click off. Thought maybe if you had like an actual drum sound and a drum beat or whatever, I thought that'd be more useful. And for the purposes of the project, I got the little MIDI track right here. And I literally just went into my, let me see, MIDI grooves. MIDI groove clips. I actually went a little bit higher up because I've got a folder just for media. where is it? MIDI drum library. Here we go. So I went. It was a Groove Monkey, and it was under right here. And I forget which one of these I actually used, but basically, I just went ahead and groove looped it, where I can just sit there and I can make it longer or shorter or whatever. So I just dragged it out to like 5 minutes and like 5.5 minutes. So you'd have plenty of time with drums playing in the background. Now, granted, all the fills and all that other stuff, we'll throw it in later when I do all the fine editing of the MIDI for the drums and get the good drum sounds and stuff going. So so don't worry about that. But at least this way, you don't have a click track that you're sitting there recording to. You've actually got some drums, a little bit of ambient room sound from the session drummer, so kind of it's a little bit more inspiring than just a plain click track, and that is basically it on the drums. And then as far as, let me kind of shrink this down and go down to tracking. For the tracking, this is another folder I created. Okay, let me shrink that one down. And on the tracking, we're basically going to just go ahead and do all the guitars and bass and everything else are going to go in this folder here. So this is where the TTK, the Tone King, gets to shine. So let me go into my, hold on, let me go track templates. I got one here called TTK Twin Guitar Tracks. And I went ahead and created 2 guitar tracks. You'll notice this one here says Guitar 1 mic. So this will be, and you'll route this in your audio software, your interface. I've got an Audio Sapphire. Focusrite Sapphire Pro 40, excuse me. So you'll route to whatever input you're using off of your mixer, and for the actual microphone on your track. And then you said you had like a JDX radial or so forth. So go ahead and do the DI, which is just a plain straight up guitar sound. I mean, like no amp, no EQ, just like basically like a direct, like you plug your guitar straight into your mixer. That's the sound you want, okay? And that's gonna go onto the DI over here, okay? So you see Guitar 1 DI. What this will do, and when you record them both at the same time. So set one input to your DI, one input for your mixer, hit the record button on both, okay? And then go ahead and just sit there and record, and do your takes and your record your rhythm tracks and your leads or whichever. And then when you're done, when you go to create another track, okay, then just basically go ahead and you can right click, hit insert audio track, and just create another one. And you can put Guitar 2, mic, or Guitar 2 DI, or whatever you want. And this way you can sit there and build all your tracks. The reason why I would like a guitar mic and a guitar DI is, one, they're going to be the same take. They're going to be the same material, the same time you're playing. You're going to record 2 tracks at the same time. The DI we're going to save for purposes that, let's say we had some, maybe it was a bad mic cable or a bad speaker cable or something, and the take just sounded just garbage. It just didn't work or whatever, and we decided we want to reamp it later. Well, we could always do that if we have a DI. And worst case scenario, we could run it through something like a Revolver or a Guitar Rig 5 or TH2 or whatever, but you'll need a DI to do that. And rather than scrap all those tracks and redo them all and take more time, if you record the DI at the same time you do the original take, I mean, you've already got you got those takes preserved essentially, and you could always then reamp them back through the amp if you wanted to later on anyway with different settings or whatever. So I'll go ahead and get this project sent off to you. I'm going to use Gobbler, and I've got pretty much everything set up. Now, by the way, Tone King, on these tracks here, I've got them set to like no input right now. So when you go to record, you'll need to make sure you set those inputs accordingly. And just FYI as well, when you're recording your guitars, try to keep them as dry as possible. So, I mean, try not to use any reverb at all, no delays. We can always add that later when we're doing the mix, but you can't remove delays and reverb from the mix, once it's been recorded that way. But you can always add it later. So let's try to keep everything as dry as possible. So, turn your distortions up. If you want, and this is probably a better idea, rather than turning your gains or your distortions up to 10, let's try like 5. Okay, just turn them down like maybe half or so, maybe 5 or 6, and then throw like a little tube screamer. I've actually got a like a green screamer, which is what I use. And the gain is like on 0. I'll usually boost the level up a bit, and I'll leave the tone pretty much right around like 12 noon. And what that does is kind of tightens up the distortion sound without really adding a whole lot of gain to it. So you still get some of that real tightness, that good chunky feel that you get from a lot of gain, but you do it with a lot less gain. And what that allows us to do later on, if we decide to start layering different rhythm parts on top of each other, as you start piling gain upon gain upon gain, it gets all mushy. And by the way, when you add gain or distortion to a guitar signal, the signal goes from like this to like this. And if you keep recording guitar tracks that are like full of gain like this, then your guitar is going to sound small. So what we want is the less amount of gain that you use, the bigger the dynamic range on the guitars, and the bigger they'll sound as you start laying them all together. So just FYI on that, Tone King. I know you pretty much know that trick, but just for the viewers out there who might not be aware of it, that's really a good trick to do. Well, all the the big name producers and engineers and so forth do it. They cut the big gain back and just sit there and layer more tracks on each other, and it gives you a really, really fat, chunky sound. So cool. I think that's all we got for today, Tone King. Let me go ahead and get this sent off to you via Gobbler. And let's see here. Yes, I do want to save it. Yes. Okay, and here we go. Gobbler. Okay, I am going to send this email address to the ToneKing.com. Okay. And here's the project. Let me know if you have any questions. And then I'm going to hit send. And there we go. Off it goes to the Tone King. So, guys, thanks so much for stopping by. Tone King, I'm looking forward to this project. And Gavin, oh, got an error. I'll go ahead and resend it. No big deal. So thanks for stopping by, guys. I'll go ahead and get this all sent off to the Tone King. And make sure you stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel, mine, as well as the Tone King's. And follow through as we go ahead and get some of his music up on iTunes and so forth. So rock on, guys. Thanks a bunch. We'll catch you later.